On a bright winter afternoon, the street looked almost peaceful. White snow piled high on every lawn, kids throwing snowballs, parents digging out cars. In the middle of it all, a Filipino man in a worn navy jacket and beanie leaned on his shovel, catching his breath. His cheeks were red from the cold. Steam rose from his mouth. He just cleared the sidewalk in front of his house and was moving on to the elderly neighbor's driveway when a police cruiser rolled up, tires crunching the slush. Two officers stepped out, one of them already smirking. In seconds, the man with the shovel went from good neighbor helping out to suspicious guy with a weapon in their eyes. None of them knew he had grown up visiting City Hall, sitting quietly in the corner while his father worked late at the mayor's desk. His name was Mateo, or Teo Ramirez, 32. He'd moved back to his childhood neighborhood after years away at grad school, hoping for a quieter life near his parents. The house was small, but it was his, bought with every scholarship and side job he could manage. He worked as a city planner now, the kind of job nobody understood until something went wrong. Flooding, traffic, sidewalks that never got fixed. That morning, a blizzard had finally passed, leaving knee-deep snow and ice crusted on every step. Teo pulled on his boots before sunrise and started shoveling his own front walk. Halfway through, he saw his neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, standing at his window, staring out with worry. The old man's back wasn't what it used to be. Teo knew he'd try to do it himself anyway and end up in the ER. So as soon as his own path was clear, Teo walked over with his shovel. "Morning, Mr. J," he called, breath puffing white. "I'll take care of this. You just watch from inside, okay?" "You're a good man, Teo," Jenkins said through the cracked door. "You sure? That's a lot of snow." "I need the workout," Teo grinned. "Besides, I like the quiet." He was halfway through scraping the driveway when the first complaint call went in. 2 blocks away, a neighbor Teo didn't know well saw him crossing from one house to the next, shovel over his shoulder, face half covered by his scarf. She was new to the area, didn't recognize him, and had seen one too many suspicious person posts in the neighborhood app. "There's a guy going house to house with a shovel," she told the 911 operator. "He keeps walking up people's driveways. I don't know what he's doing, it just looks off." "Is he doing anything illegal?" the operator asked. "I don't know," the caller said. He's not white, kind of shorter, darker. I just don't want any trouble." By the time Teo finished Mr. Jenkins' driveway and moved on to the empty property next door, the patrol car was already heading his way. Teo didn't see it at first. He had his head down, shovel scraping over the concrete, the repetitive motion soothing. His arms ached, but in a good way. This was the kind of tired he liked. Honest, simple. He'd just paused to roll his shoulders when the cruiser stopped in the street with a hiss of air brakes. "Hey, you, with a shovel!" Teo turned, surprised. 2 officers were marching toward him, boots crunching. The taller one, Officer Blake, had that tight-jawed look Teo recognized from news clips. The other, Officer Daniels, looked younger, more uncertain, but he kept pace. Teo leaned on his shovel, confused. "Afternoon, officers," he said. "Everything okay?" Blake scanned him from head to toe. Dark skin, thick jacket dusty with snow, work-worn gloves, an unfamiliar face, at least to him. "We got a call about a suspicious male going onto properties with a shovel," Blake said. "That you?" Teo blinked. "I'm shoveling," he said. "It's what people do after snowstorms." He gestured behind him. "That's my neighbor's driveway. He's 80. I'm helping him out." Daniels glanced toward the house. Mr. Jenkins was still peeking through the curtain, worried eyes huge behind his glasses. Blake snorted. "Funny," he said. "Caller says you've been walking up and down the street checking out houses. You got ID on you?" Teo shifted his weight. His wallet was inside. He'd come outside in a hurry and didn't think he'd need it to move snow from one rectangle of concrete to another. "It's in my house, just there," he said, pointing to the small blue house across the driveway. I wasn't planning on going anywhere. I can get it if you'd like. Blake stepped closer, squinting. You live here? Yes. You're renting? Teo hesitated. The question itself wasn't wrong, but the tone made his chest tighten. I own it, he said. Bought it last year. Blake's eyebrows rose slightly, skepticism clear. You own it? Yes, sir, Teo repeated. Daniels shifted uncomfortably. Maybe he really is just helping his neighbor, he muttered, almost too quiet. Blake ignored him, eyes fixed on Teo. You work around here? Teo exhaled slowly, watching his breath cloud the air. I work for the city, he said. That set Blake off. For the city? He echoed. Let me guess, some kind of big shot? Funny. I've been on this beat for 5 years and I've never seen you once. You sure you're not just casing houses? Teo tightened his grip on the shovel. With a shovel? He asked. In broad daylight? With half the neighborhood watching? Out of the corner of his eye, he could see people gathering. Neighbors stepping onto porches, phones in their hands. He saw a mother pull her kid back inside, even though the boy protested. But Mom, that's the guy who helped us dig the car out last time. Blake stepped even closer, chest puffed, and voice dropping so only Teo and Daniels could hear. I know your type, he said. Come in, pretend to help, check who lives where, who leaves their doors open. My type? Teo repeated, anger bubbling up through the cold. And what type is that exactly, officer? Blake's eyes hardened. Drop the shovel. Now. Teo let it fall. The wooden handle thumped into the snow. Hands out of your pockets, he continued, even though Teo's hands were already visible, gloveless, reddened by the cold. Turn around. Officer, please, Teo said. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm not resisting. There has to be a better way to handle a call about someone shoveling. Blake jabbed a finger at his chest, almost knocking him back a step. You don't get to tell me how to handle my calls. You're out here going onto properties that aren't yours. That's trespassing. I'm giving you a chance to walk away before this becomes something else. Teo stared at him. Walk away from my own street? From my neighbor's driveway? Mr. Jenkins finally pushed open his door, voice trembling. Officer, he's telling the truth. That's my driveway. I asked him to help me. My back. Sir, go back inside, Blake snapped without turning. We'll handle it. Before we continue the story, let me know what country you're watching from. Hit the like button if you love this story, and please subscribe if you are new to my channel. Let's continue. The old man shrank back, hurt flashing across his face. Teo glanced between them, disbelief tightening his jaw. You're not even listening, he said softly. You already decided what I am. Yeah? Blake shot back. What are you then? Before Teo could answer, another car pulled onto the street, tires crunching over the packed snow. It was a black SUV, not a police vehicle, but it parked with the same confidence, right behind the cruiser. The door opened and a woman stepped out, coat flaring in the cold wind. She was in her late 50s, Filipino as well, her hair streaked with gray, face familiar from every election poster and city newsletter. Mayor Elena Ramirez. Teo's heart lurched. He hadn't told his parents he was going out to shovel. His mother must have seen the police lights from their own house 3 streets over, or maybe a neighbor had called. Either way, she moved fast for someone her age, boots crunching, scarf trailing behind her like a flag. Mateo, she called, her voice sharp with panic. A knock, what's going on? Blake turned, irritated. Ma'am, please stay back. This is an active...
He recognized her mid-sentence. His mouth snapped shut. Mayor Ramirez had that effect on people. She wasn't tall, but she carried herself like she'd spent decades walking into rooms where no one expected her to lead and doing it anyway. She took in the scene, her son standing in the snow, shovel on the ground, a cop in his face, neighbors watching, phones out. She stopped a few feet away, breath visible in the air, eyes dark. "Officer," she said, voice calm but edged with steel. "Why are you in my son's face?" Blake swallowed. "Your son?" he repeated, glancing at Teo. "This is Mateo Ramirez, my child, who texted me a picture of the driveway he cleared for Mr. Jenkins 20 minutes ago." She turned to Teo for a second, her voice softening. "Are you hurt?" "I'm okay, Ma, though my hand still shook slightly. Just cold." She nodded once. Then she faced Blake fully. "Explain." Blake shifted, suddenly aware of every camera pointed his way. He said, "We got a call from a resident about a suspicious individual walking onto properties with a shovel. We arrived, saw Mr. Ramirez here, and made contact. Standard procedure." "Your standard procedure involves shouting and jabbing a citizen in the chest while he's standing in front of his own house?" the mayor asked. "Because if that's the case, we have much bigger problems than snow." Daniel spoke up, voice tight. "The caller said he was going door to door. We needed to make sure there wasn't any criminal activity." "And did you ask anyone else on this street? Any of the neighbors watching from their windows? Or did you go straight to the brown man with the shovel and decide he was the threat?" Silence fell. The wind whistled between the houses. Someone's dog barked faintly inside. Blake's breath puffed white as he answered, "We responded to the description we were given. We don't see race, ma'am. We see behavior." Teo let out a humorless laugh. "Funny, because my behavior was helping my neighbors not break their hips on ice. You turned that into probable thief pretty fast." Mayor Ramirez's eyes flashed. "You say you don't see race, but somehow when a Filipino man shovels 3 driveways, you get a suspicious person call. And when his white neighbor does the same thing next winter, I doubt you'll show up with your hand on your holster." Daniels looked down at his boots, guilt creeping across his face. Blake opened his mouth, then closed it. His jaw worked. The certainty he'd walked in with was melting faster than the snow under the weak sun. He looked around and saw not just his partner and the mayor, but the cluster of neighbors, some angry, some frightened, all watching. A teenager across the street held up his phone, recording everything. "You could have asked my name," Teo said quietly. "You could have asked who I was helping. Instead, you called me your type and told me to leave my own street." Blake's throat tightened. The words sounded uglier now that they were hanging in the cold air, repeated back to him. He thought of the bias training slides he'd skimmed. He thought of the way he'd shrugged off warnings about how things look, because he believed his intentions were more important than appearances. The mayor took a step closer, her boots firm in the snow. "Officer Blake, when I ran for office, I promised this city that our police would be partners, not predators. I know this job is hard. I know you deal with real danger. But what I'm seeing right now is not about danger. It's about assumption." She pointed at the shovel lying in the snow. "My son grew up on this block. He shoveled that driveway when he was 8. He spent his childhood listening to me practice speeches about fairness and justice. And today, in front of the people who know him, you made him feel like a trespasser on his own street." Blake's cheeks burned.
The anger had drained away, replaced by something more uncomfortable. Shame. "I didn't know he was your son," he said, voice smaller.
"That's exactly the point," she replied. "You shouldn't have to know whose son he is to treat him with respect." The words landed like a weight on everyone's shoulders. Teo felt something loosen in his chest. Not forgiveness yet, but the relief of finally hearing the truth said out loud by someone with power. Daniels cleared his throat. "Mayor Ramirez, Mr. Ramirez," he said, "I'm sorry. We should have handled this differently. We should have asked questions before escalating. That's on us." Blake stared at Teo, at the neighbors, at the camera lenses. For a second, he imagined the headlines. "Officer harasses mayor's son for shoveling snow." He imagined his chief's face, the disciplinary meeting, the union rep. But behind all of that, he saw something else. A kid on the sidewalk watching his dad be shoved around for doing the right thing. "I owe you an apology," he forced out. "Mr. Ramirez, I'm sorry I treated you like a suspect. I let the call and my own assumptions override my judgment." Teo studied him. The words weren't smooth, they scraped on the way out, but they were real. "You scared my neighbors," Teo said. "You made Mr. Jenkins feel like he was doing something wrong by asking for help." Mr. Jenkins, standing in his doorway, nodded shakily. "He's a good boy. We're lucky to have him here." Blake swallowed. "I understand," he said. "I'll be noting all of this in my report, and I'll be requesting to go through that bias training again, properly this time." The mayor nodded slowly. "You will," she said, "and you'll be sitting down with my office to talk about how these calls are handled, because today it was my son with a shovel. Next time it could be someone without a connection to City Hall, someone who doesn't get this kind of intervention." She turned to the watching neighbors, raising her voice just enough. "For the record, this man is not a threat. He is my son, a city planner, and a good neighbor. The only thing he's guilty of is caring enough to shovel 3 driveways instead of 1. A ripple of murmurs went through the crowd. The teenager with the phone lowered it a bit, eyes wide. A woman 2 houses down called, "We know! Teo helped us last year when my husband was sick." Teo felt warmth spread through his chest despite the cold. He hadn't realized how much he needed to hear that either. The mayor placed a hand on his arm. "Go on," she murmured. "Finish what you were doing if you still feel up to it. The city still needs cleared sidewalks." He huffed a small laugh. "Only if you promise to go back inside where it's warm, remember?" She smiled, the tension in her eyes easing for the first time. "Deal," she said. As the officers retreated to their car, Blake looked back one more time. Teo had picked up his shovel again, scraping the last strip of ice from the driveway. A little kid down the street was watching, copying his motions with a tiny plastic shovel. Blake realized that in a different version of this day, he might have walked by, nodded, maybe even thanked the man for helping out the neighborhood. Instead, he'd turned it into a scene. He sat behind the wheel, staring at his gloved hands. "We really messed that up," he muttered. Daniels nodded. "Yeah," he said, "but at least we saw it. Can't fix what you won't admit." On the sidewalk, Teo finished the last pass and straightened, stretching his aching back. He looked down the street at the tracks he'd carved in the snow, small lines of bare concrete in a sea of white. It struck him that this was what change looked like, too. Narrow paths of truth cutting through layers of assumption, one shoveled strip at a time. He knew there would be more storms, more calls, more moments when people looked at him and saw the wrong story. But he also knew something else now. When those moments came, he wasn't alone. His neighbors had seen, his mother had spoken, the cameras had captured every shove, every word, every apology. And somewhere in the police station, an officer would be writing a report that began with "responded to call about suspicious person shoveling snow" and ended with "subject was the mayor's son, no crime committed." Maybe next time a similar call came in, someone would remember this street, this day, this Filipino man in a navy jacket with a shovel in his hands. Maybe next time they'd show up with a question instead of an accusation.
Thank you for watching to our Badge and Justice stories. If you want to watch more stories like this, click the videos above. See you again tomorrow.